when you first get married, this is why every brother on this line, we could say whatever we want to say. Our wives don't trust us 100%. They don't trust us 100%. You have to show her that I'm trustworthy.
On track, now we gon' way up. W's as easy as a layup. Working late, stay up. Counting all the way up. Counting blessings, yeah, you know we pray up. Pray up. On track, now we gon' way up. Now we gon' way up. Now we going. On track, now we gon' way up. Now we gon' way up. Now we going.
So I didn't get through all of our first session, right? But I just want to give you the points, so at least you can have the points. So excellent husbands have a relationship not only with the Lord, but a relationship with the Word. Psalms 119, 105. Psalms 119, 105 says this. It says, your word is a lamp for my feet and a light to my path. In other words, the word directs us. The word gives us direction. You and I cannot survive as a husband without word in us. And here's what I'm going to say. Here's how you measure the kind of word we have in us. You can measure the level of word you have in you based on how you handle conflict with your wife. If you ain't got no word in you, if you ain't got no substance in you, then you're gonna handle it out of your flesh. You're gonna handle it with arguing and bickering. You're gonna handle it with pride. So you have to have word in you. Brothers, you can't go a day without reading your word. You can't go a day without doing it, right? If you're gonna be excellent, you need to have consistent doses of the word on a daily basis, right? No word, you don't have no firepower for conflict with your wife. The only firepower you have is your flesh. And if that's the only firepower you have, then you're going to ruin your relationship. How many times again have you gotten to an argument, a spat with your wife, and you just spouted off the wrong thing? The word gives us direction. The word says it's a light unto my feet, a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. In Old Testament times, people used to actually tie lanterns to their feet when they would walk at night, and the lanterns would illuminate their way. It would illuminate the road, the path that they were walking on. So they are literally saying, the writer is literally saying that if I tie your word to my feet, oh my God, it will light my path. It will illuminate where I'm going. It will give me wisdom in my life. It will send me in the right direction. I'm not walking in the dark. It's not the blind leading the blind. Jesus said in Matthew 4:4, he says that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. The word, brothers, listen, the word is essential. It may seem cliche-ish, right? Right? It might seem like, all right, we hear this all the time. But how much are you doing it versus how much it's working or not working in your life? If you read more Facebook posts than you read the word, brothers, then we gotta come back, brothers. We gotta come. You have to have some word in you so it can illuminate your life and illuminate your path, so it can put you and send you in the right direction. It will give you the right direction when you are in conflict with your wife, right? When you're in conflict with whatever, it's again, it's specifically your wife, but it illuminates our path. It gives us direction, right? It's crazy because some problems that we're experiencing as husbands can be remedied by reading your word consistently. You don't know how to respond to your wife because you don't know how to be humble, because you're not reading the word enough, right? If you had enough word in you, you wouldn't have to call pastor. You wouldn't have to call your deacon or your elder. You could go to the word and draw from the well of the word in your belly. Y'all hearing me? So most of us, or many of us, you just need a deeper well to draw from when it comes from the word. And if you don't have a well to draw from, then the only well you're going to draw from is the well of your flesh. And when you draw from that word, the only thing that comes from it is fleshly issues, fleshly responses, fleshly desires, right? So not only do I need to have a relationship with the word, I have to have a relationship with worship, right? Brothers, you got to have your own relationship with worship, right? What's your worship like? How many of us attend church because our wives drag us, right? How many of us go because it's an obligation for us, right? We have to develop a life of devotion and dedication if we're going to be excellent husbands. All these things matter, right? Philippians 3:10, Paul says, Lord, I just want to know you. He says, that I might know him in the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering, being made conformable unto death. Paul's desire, watch this, brothers, was to get to know God on a deeper level. Bottom line, if you get to know God on a deeper level, there will never be an issue in your marriage that you can't overcome, that you can't handle, that you can't deal with, but you have to get to know God on a deeper level, right? Being saved is only the beginning of the journey, brothers. You're saved. I'm glad. That's good. Bless the Lord. But there's another level, right? You have to develop a life of worship, right? You got to develop this life of devotion, this life of connectivity with God, and out of that flows springs of wisdom and power and all of the things that you need to navigate a relationship. If you've been married for one day, you're going to know what conflict is. If you've been married for a week, you recognize, yeah, I need a little bit more word in me, because I didn't have anything to fight with, right? I didn't have anything to fight with. And so brothers, we got to get the word in us. Not only do we have to get the word in us, if we're going to be excellent husbands, we have to have a relationship with works. Here's what I mean by that, brother. God gave Adam a job before he gave him a wife. Now, not just a job, but God gave Adam the ability, the heart, and the desire to be productive before he gave him a wife. And so, brothers, some of us have wives that are frustrated with us because we aren't productive, right? You might have a job outside the home, but you're not productive in the home. And brothers, listen, we can't be like our fathers that say, listen, I love you because I put food on the table. Nah, brothers, it's 2021. Y'all got wives y'all got these new age wives. They not going for that. They need a little bit more than just food on the table, right? Right. They need productivity, right? Excellent husbands are productive. Brothers, Second Thessalonians 3:10 says, even while we were still there with you, we gave you this rule: he who doesn't work shall eat. We should have jobs, obviously, and we should be productive, right? How many of our wives are frustrated with us because we just aren't productive? You can't say, I have a job, I work all day, I come home, I sit in front of the TV for the rest of the day or the rest of the evening and not be productive at home. Brothers, you can't do that. Yes, you have a job. Yes, your job might be strenuous, but you got a job waiting for you when you get home as well. So there is a sacrifice in being married. There's a lot more that comes with being married than just giving her a ring, saying I do, and having sex whenever you want to. Uh-oh. I hope I ain't touch a nerve.
No, it's tight, but it's right.
Brothers,
it's tight, but it's right.
Brothers, listen. We should never put our wives in position to hold us down financially if we are well able and our bodies are able to work and be productive, right? We have to find a way to be productive, whether by employment, and again, not just being productive and bringing home the bacon. Sometimes when you come home, your wife gonna have a honey-do list for you, and we talk about boundaries with that as well. And we'll say, hey, babe, listen, I'll get to that list on Saturday. But that's part of our responsibility to be productive. And I'm telling you, some of us have wives that look at us on the couch and say, I don't even believe I'm looking at this dude sit on the couch every single day for hours and he ain't doing nothing. All he doing is watching the game and playing the game. Brothers, you got to balance your life out, right? How productive are you? How do you do you get upset when you feel like your wife is not respecting you? And she should, right? Or she doesn't sleep with you or have sex with you like you want her to. And she should when you aren't productive. Let me tell y'all something. Emotionally, everything connects for our wives, right? Wives do not compartmentalize like we do. We can have an argument with our wife. I mean, we can have like a knockdown joint. It could be 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And when it's time to go to bed, you're like, yo, I'm ready. Like, what's up? Like, and you ready to go. But wifey, like, no, like you just called me names, you just screamed at me all day, and you want me to be intimate with you? And here's the reason why, because all of those things run together for her, right? For you, argument and sex don't have one thing don't have anything to do with the other thing, right? For her, it has everything to do with that. You not being productive and her feeling like I want to be intimate with you because I don't like you, like emotionally, I don't feel no connection to you. I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying that it happens, right? I'm not saying that she's right for that, because the Bible is explicit in terms of how it speaks in terms of how we are to give our bodies to one another, that our bodies aren't our own, right? So the Bible is explicit in our responsibility in terms of intimacy. But I'm telling you, these are some of the things that affect our intimacy. If you're not productive, your wife go to work all day long and you sitting in the same spot you were sitting when she left this morning, right? You don't took a nap, you played the game, you watched the game over, you watch your favorite show, you binge watching. Like, brothers, like, productivity is important for a husband, for an excellent husband. Your wife needs to know that if something breaks in the house, maybe you might not be able to fix it, but I'm sure going to get somebody to come in here, or I'm going to get somebody to show me and help me fix what I need to get fixed. You can't have a hole in the bathroom the size of a quarter this week, and a year from now, it's the size of a bucket now, because you weren't productive. And I know I'm talking to somebody. I already know it. Brothers, we got to be productive with our relationship. There are many other things I want to that I have in my notes, but I want to give you this last one, brothers, and then we're gonna go back into Q&A, right? Because I don't want to teach all the way through 9:30, but I want to give you this other one here. Brothers, if we're going to be excellent husbands, we have to be visionaries, right? We have to be visionaries. Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish, right? Where there is no vision, people perish. Where there is no direction, the people cast off restraint. In other words, where there is no vision, there is no direction. Husbands, you have to be visionaries. Many of us have wives who are frustrated with us because we aren't taking them anywhere. We've not set a plan in place for them to go anywhere. You frustrate your spouse when you don't have vision, brothers. The Bible says that God says in Genesis, for it is not good for man to be alone. I'm going to send him a helper, right? Or someone who is suitable to help him. Brothers, her responsibility is to help. Your responsibility is to lead, right? And so you don't give her anything to help you in, so you frustrate her. Let me say that again, brother. When you don't have vision, you don't give your wife anything to help you with, right? What are you giving your wife to help you with? What's the vision of your home, right? What's the direction of your home? Brothers, not only should you have a long-term vision, there should be a short-term vision. And the vision should be updated from season to season. Once we accomplish a vision, once the vision comes to pass, okay, we got another vision, we working on this. Okay, you should have financial vision, goal, right? You should have a vision for your home, uh, uh, internally in your home. There should be a vision for your marriage. Where do you want to see yourself in your marriage in the next 1 to 3 years? Where are we going to be the next 3 to 5 years? Where are we going to be financially? Brothers, you have to be a visionary if you're going to be an excellent husband. You have to learn to lead your wife. Your wife should not be leading you, right? I know some of you come from contexts where the women were the leaders in the home, right? The women were the strong leaders in the home, and the men came home, sat down on the couch, watched TV, and didn't do anything for the rest of the day, right? The men sat down and shut up. No, that's not your responsibility. That's not your lane, brothers. Your lane is leader, right? And so if you're going to be excellent in being a husband, then you got to be a visionary. You got to cast vision for your home. You can't be in a marriage and your wife and your children have no clue of where this family is going. All right, what we doing in this family? Where we going? What's the goal? What's our financial goals? Right? What's our health goals? Me and my wife need to lose weight. I need to motivate my wife so that her and I can get healthy. You can't do kingdom and be used in the hand of the Lord and we not healthy, right? We laid up in the bed. We got all kinds of diseases and sicknesses. No shot at anybody, but we have to take better care of our body. Do we have visions for that? Okay, so when we talk about divorce, obviously, God is for marriage. God does not want us to be divorced. The Bible says, what God puts together, let no man put asunder, or let no man separate or pull apart, right? So when you look at divorce, in both Old and New Testament, especially when Jesus talks about divorce, there were a lot of people who would put their wives away for foolish reasons. But divorce, from a biblical perspective, divorce was not just about two people breaking apart, but divorce was about finances, right? There was a lot that had to do with dowries or payments. So if a wife was being divorced, then that left her, in many cases, with no one to care for her. In some cases, her having to go and to prostitute herself so that she could survive. And so divorce, a lot of times when you talk about divorce from a biblical perspective, a lot of it had to do with finances and payment, right? And so when we look at Christ and his church, which is a picture in a mirror of marriage, right? We are the bride of Christ. The church is the bride, right? So we think in terms of the bride of Christ. Does Christ divorce us from himself? No, absolutely not. So the thought is, no, God does not want us to be divorced. But Burton, the unfortunate thing is that we are all flawed human beings. Mm-hmm. And it happens. My encouragement to everybody who gets married, anybody who comes through our church, we take them through a rigorous premarital counseling session. We don't just do 1 or 2 sessions. We spend lots of time with our couples. After spending time with them, after they get married, we connect them with a mentor couple. So we give them all of the tools that they need to be successful. But we can't guarantee you that you're going to stay together. That's up to the individuals, their relationship with the Lord, obviously, and how they process and see marriage. In short, no, God doesn't want us to be divorced. And we have to make sure that when we do get married, that we are marrying for the right reasons, that we are mature enough to be married, and that we are marrying the right individuals. But God is not going to punish you for divorce. Is he against divorce? Yes, absolutely. But there is no scarlet letter on you because you got divorced. Amen. Hopefully that makes sense to you.
Unfortunately, we live in a society that has made divorce so easy. Like anytime I talk to homosexuals about marriage, they always try to redefine it, right? And one of the things I tell them is that you guys didn't mess up marriage. I say heterosexuals did. Reason being is because before Ronald Reagan became president, there was in the United States, there was fault divorce, meaning you had to prove that there was infidelity, you had to prove there was abuse, you had to prove there was abandonment before a judge would grant you a divorce. When Ronald Reagan came into office, he passed the law saying no fault divorce, which is, I think, is true in like 48 out of 50 states, meaning I don't need to have a real good reason for divorce. So now our society makes marriage and divorce almost like a revolving door. So in the context of church, uh, churches have to do a way better job, I would argue, of preparing singles for marriage so that they understand the commitment for life. And so they understand, if I'm going to say for better or for worse, I don't know what worse is going to look like. A lot of times we think worse is, oh, money is funny, or they getting on my nerves, or no, worse could be your spouse has cancer. Worse could be, God forbid, there's infidelity. And it's like, is my commitment to you for life, for worse, or is my commitment to you until? And so if singles have a better mindset around, I'm with this person for life. My prayer is that the person I'm marrying will honor the vows and the covenant, but I'm with you for life, right? And if you violate the covenant, then I have to make some serious decisions about, am I willing to work through it, or do I have biblical grounds for divorce? Because the biblical grounds for divorce are very small. They're there, but it's a very small window. And God would rather the Christian work through it than look at it as, I'm going to get rid of you, right? Because although your wife can go out and get a job and she can still make her money without you, et cetera, because biblically, wives that got divorced, as Pastor Tim said, they were no good to anybody. So that's why divorcing a wife was like almost a death sentence. But in our culture, we got to make sure we're preparing ourselves to endure anything that could come in a marriage, so that divorce is not the option that's on the table. But if it just so happens to be the option, me as the husband needs to make sure I've exhausted every resource. I've done everything I could possibly do. I've sought for counseling. I've done everything I could possibly do. And yet, if she still wants to divorce you, then hey, you can sleep at night saying, God, I did everything I could, because you can't hold a person hostage in a marriage. But making sure I've done my entire due diligence to make sure I committed to my vows, and I stuck it out. So
that when we take our vows,
mm-hmm.
you have no clue of which one of those vows you're gonna have to walk out.
Absolutely.
That's the mystery of marriage. That you may have a fantastic marriage when nobody ever gets sick, or you may not have infidelity, or you may not have disrespect, but you really don't know until you get in a marriage. I got into a marriage where my wife ended up getting sick, and that was that was a real, for better for worse moment,
mm-hmm.
where you go from being just a husband to a caretaker,
mm-hmm.
right? And then that impacts so many other things. But yeah, I think especially with the generation that we're seeing now, is that we really don't. There's no real stick to itness, no real fortitude, right? Everything is transactional, and transient for especially millennials, these young folks. Like everything is transient, everything is fluid for them. So it's like, all right, I don't like this, I'll go on to the next thing. I don't like this job, I'll get another job. You look at some of the resumes of millennials trying to get a job. I was looking at this website, and they were talking about that, how millennials, they have like all of these jobs, like you have like 6 jobs in the last year and a half, because they're transient. And so it's really a mindset thing, whereas we have to learn to have stick to itness and fortitude in the marriage, because everything in the marriage, there are times where everything in the marriage won't go right, or won't go the way that you plan, and you got to be strong enough to work through it and deal with it and overcome it. Yeah. It almost seems like I'm performing, right? It almost seems like that. That's why we always talk about how important it is to recognize the context that you're about to get married into, right? So her context is she never saw that. And so you're learning to do that and to be that. When you first get married, this is why every brother on this line, we could say whatever we want to say. Our wives don't trust us 100%. They don't trust us 100%. You have to show her that I'm trustworthy, right? You have to show her that text in Ephesians 5, where Paul says, wife, submit yourself to your own husband, right? When we look at that word submit there, we look at it from a Western perspective. It's not submit as I dominate her. It's submit to my leadership, my headship. Follow me as I follow Christ, right? And so when you get married, you're going to have to, like, again, I'm 17, almost 18 years in. My wife knows my track record. My wife knows if I say something, I'm gonna do it. Because I'm a man of my word. My wife knows if I say I'm not gonna do something, she can't persuade me to do it because she knows that's my husband, right? She recognizes, and I've grown, and she's grown to trust me. And so it's going to take time, Ruben, for your wife to grow and trust you, but you're going to have to give her something to trust. You can't say, okay, I'm going to lead the family and I want you to follow me, but you lead us into a ditch, or you make bad financial choices, or I'm on Instagram, wilding out, right? You have to give your wife, and that's just the nature of life. Your wife is not going to trust you 100% when you first get in marriage. She trusts you enough to marry you and know that you have integrity and know she loves you, and you're going to take care of the kids. She knows that, right? But there are certain things that happens in the process of being married, right? Where the cover and the lid of your relationship comes off, and she begins to see the little nuances of who you are. Okay, is he a man of his word? Does he keep his word? Does he keep telling me he's going to do something, but he never gets around to it? Does he ignore the kids? Does he take his money and do his own thing with his money and exclude me from the financial process, right? All of these things they're looking at, Ruben. And so because you're marrying into this context, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for you to help her in this training process. And then the other thing too is, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. We need good models. You got to have a good model. She has to be connected to another wife who where she's seeing this. Connect with other couples. Go out with other couples. Surround yourself with other couples who are walking in that direction, who will give you guys a good model. But it's going to take some time. Don't expect for it to happen overnight, because your wife is in her 30s, right? She's in her 30s. It took her 30 years to get here, Ruth. One day at the altar ain't gonna get her to where she needs. Just like one day at the altar is not gonna get you there. It's gonna take some time, and you both are going to grow and learn and develop together. But it's gonna take time, and you got to be intentional about it. And she's watching you.
Mm-hmm.
She's watching you, man of God. So when you say something, say what you mean and mean what you say. Do what you say you're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
Be honorable in your marriage. Be consistent and sturdy in your marriage. So she knows, even though I did not see a good model of what leadership looks like, it sure looks doggone good from what Ruben is doing. Don't give her the same model she saw when she was growing up. Or my dad wasn't there. Or he said he was coming to visit us, but he never came. He said he was going to give us money, but he never seemed to get around to giving us money. Him and my mom separate. Like, don't give her those experiences. Give her the experiences that affirms who you are in the kingdom and affirms a good, strong, healthy relationship.
I concur with that for sure. And I'll encourage you with this, Ruben. Like as Christians, we have a faith that's not blind, in the sense that we don't have any evidence to support it, right? Our faith, the Greek word for faith, means pistis, which means that you're persuaded based on evidence, right? So when we say we have faith in God, we trust God based on the evidence of what God has revealed to us. The same is true when it comes to a relationship. Your wife is going to trust you based on evidence. And the thing about evidence, if it's falsified, it's not trustworthy. So your word, keeping your word, all these things that Pastor Tim talked about, these are the evidences of trust that your wife needs to believe in. And she raises the percentage level of trusting in you based on the evidence you show her. And so really, as a husband, we got to show and prove or provide evidence that our wife finds that we're credible, right? So if you have a history of promiscuity, that's a doubt in the mind of your wife. If she knows your background, like, man, you was smashing all the chicks, now you got with me, you say you're gonna be faithful. In her mind, she has doubt. And if there's any doubt in the mind of a woman, that's going to impact her security. And one thing women are looking for from their husbands is security. If she has any area of insecurity, that's going to be a point of contention. So you have to provide 1,000 documents of evidence to your wife that this area you can trust me in. So you definitely want to be intentional about providing evidence that your wife can trust you in, no matter what the area, so that she's like, okay, when I go to sleep at night, I'm at peace because my husband has proven and demonstrated to me over time, right, in our relationship, that I can trust him. So I'm not worried about him, because he's demonstrated that he's trustworthy.
So listen, let me tell you this. Let me say
Yeah.
this first, and I'm gonna let Pastor Salim piggyback on this. Marriage is about partnership, right? If you ever have to say in your home, I'm the man, I'm the leader, you probably aren't, right? If you walk in my house and I'm there and my family is here, there is no doubt who runs this house. There's no doubt. And I never have to open my mouth because of how my family defer to who I am and how they defer to my leadership, not to me being a domineering and overbearing and rigid, but because of how I lead from a godly perspective. Goals. Let's just make some goals, right? Let's just say, let's talk about a financial goal. So you and your wife want to get out of financial debt. You're the leader, and you say, okay, let's come together, and here is a plan that I have to get us out of debt. Now, because it's a partnership, your wife might say, oh, you know what? That's great. Let's add this. But she's following the template that has already been put in place, but she's adding to the template, right? She's not running you. She doesn't make all of the decisions. Ryan, again, you really, and I'm being honest, you got to be careful with who you're talking to. Marriage is outside of me giving my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. This is the God's honest truth. Getting married to me was the next best thing, because I married someone who understands me. I married someone who follows me, someone who honors me, all of those things, right? My wife doesn't run me, but there are things in my home where if my wife decides to paint the walls green, have at it. That has nothing to do with my leadership, right? If she wants to have purple curtains, have at it. She's making the house a home. She's making it the way she wants to make it look. But when it comes to making decisions, she cannot usurp my headship and leadership in terms of making decisions for my home. For example, a couple of years ago, her car went down. She wanted a car. We had two cars. We were down to one car. My wife wanted a car. She was like, I need a car. You know, I need a car. And I said to my wife, and I looked at my wife flat-footed and said to her, we are not going to buy a car right now. Here's why we're not going to buy a car. Give me 6 months. We'll buy a car. But I'm not buying a car today just because you want a car and it's inconveniencing us. Because I know the financial ramifications long-term if we do it today. Just give me 6 months, 7 months. I'll get you a car. I drive a pickup truck. Y'all know that. I drive a Dodge Ram pickup truck, right? I told my wife, you got to drive my truck. I'll get an Uber. That's leadership. I'll be inconvenienced. You take the so you and my daughter, you and the van can get around. I'll get an Uber. I'll get a Lyft. I'll do what I need to do. You take my car so that you can get around and I'll be inconvenienced. That's what leadership is, Ryan. Leadership is not, okay, I do everything that my wife does, because there are going to be times where you have to make a decision that your wife will not agree with, but because God called you to be a leader of that home, you're going to have to roll out with that decision and be at peace with it and not allow her emotions and her pulling and tugging on your heart to make you make a different decision. So there are going to be times where you have to make decisions that she doesn't agree with. And you got to be strong enough to say, hey, listen, this is the right decision for our home. And so because my wife trusted me and she trusts me and she know I'm a man of my word, 6 months later, I bought a brand new car. But because she knows I lead well, and because when I say something, I follow through with it, she doesn't have a problem with being inconvenienced for a season because she knows I'm going to make good on what I say. So leadership is not about, oh, you got to do what your wife says. No, absolutely not. No, you're the head. You're the leader. You're going to be responsible for how you lead your home and your family. Leadership is not deferring to the whimsical desires of your wife because she wants something or she desires to have something. There are going to be times where you're going to have to say no to your wife and mean it. Because if you let your wife put you in a bad spot financially, you're going to be playing catch up for 2-3 years. Because my wife wanted a car, I could have went out the next day and said, all right, we're going to finance this car. But now the bill is like, I still got to pay the bill. I still got to pay that car note, right? I needed her to wait so that I was able to do what I needed to do on my end, get some other bills situated, get some other things paid, put us in a better financial situation, and boom, we got the car, and she rolling, and she trusted that. But leadership is not about giving in to her desires because she wants something. There are going to be times as a husband you got to say, no, that's not going to work for our family right now, and be at peace with that. And she could cry, kick, scream, holler, and she'll get over it, and she'll be fine. And she'll learn to love you when you make those kind of decisions. Because most women don't want a man they can just walk over. Most women want a man who's going to lead and tell them to sit down and be quiet. Not like that, but y'all know what I mean.
When all of creation sank, God came to Adam. I don't see anywhere in the text where God looked at Eve, God had a conversation with Eve. No, God said, I'm dealing with Adam, because the role of the husband in the marriage is to be the head. All right. So one of the things me and my wife say is, I'm the head, she's the neck, right? The next job is to support the head. If you've ever gone to sleep and woken up with a stiff neck, it affects everything. A migraine is nothing compared to a stiff neck. So a migraine is a husband who is out of whack. A stiff neck is a wife who's out of whack, because you can go to work with a stiff neck. You can't even drive with a migraine. I am responsible for this household. I'm responsible that this household is protected. I'm responsible that this household is supported. I'm responsible that this household is working the way it's supposed to work. So that's the first thing you got to keep in mind when you think of leadership, responsibility. Because if you have the bulk of the responsibility, that only matters when something goes wrong. That's first thing. Second thing, leadership is about delegation. If I'm a leader, then I have to make sure I can delegate to those who are on my team, right? There's the argument about who's the GOAT, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, right? I let people decide whoever they think there is. But when it comes to leadership, one would argue that LeBron James is the greatest leader as a basketball player the NBA's ever seen. Because anybody that's ever played with LeBron, right? And I'm not talking about left him, but as his teammate, they all feel empowered because they're playing with this one guy. His whole mission is to empower because he delegates. He delegates to his teammates. And as a husband, if I'm a terrible delegator, then that leads to dictatorship, which is not about being a qualitative leader, right? Jesus delegated to the disciples. He gave them responsibility. He gave them what they're supposed to do. As a husband, my wife should feel secure that, okay, if my husband has a deficiency in this area, he's not going to allow his pride to be like, no, I got this. And I'll give you an example from my own life. My wife is older than me, and she was able to understand finances a lot faster than I was. So I knew that before we got married. So I made an executive decision that when it came to understanding the finances, when it came to different things like that, I was going to delegate that responsibility to her because she had more wisdom in that area than I did. Right. I've since caught up, and now we have way more partnership in that area as far as understanding finances, making financial decisions together. But I didn't have enough pride, I would argue, to say, no, I'm the man. I control the money. No, it's about delegation. And so as a husband, you got to make sure I'm delegating effectively. When you have kids, you're going to have to delegate to your kids' responsibility. It can't always be Salim. Forget what y'all talking about. It has to be, I'm delegating. There's shared responsibility, shared equity, shared partnership. All that things really, really matter. So if you want to understand what leadership is from a biblical perspective, it's about responsibility and it's about delegation. And you got to make sure your wife feels like she's contributing and she's an asset as opposed to a liability when it comes to your marriage.
Yep. You talked about delegating the finances to her. And when you look at that, you delegated responsibility, but not leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You delegated a function of marriage, because culturally, when we look at marriage, we say women should cook, men should change the oil in the car. Those are functions of marriage. Those aren't the roles, like our biblical roles in the marriage. So as a leader, you can absolutely do that, and it's good. Here's the other thing you said. You talked about when God came down. God looked for Adam. God said, Adam, where are you? He didn't say where Eve is. When you look at the Bible and you look at that discourse between God, Adam, and the woman, the punishment, he gives the man the punishment. The woman is not really punished. He just says you're going to have labor and childbearing. But he doesn't curse anything when it came to the woman. He cursed the ground for the man. His discourse, he even used, this might seem like trivial, but it's really not. He even used more words when he dealt with the man and divvied out the man's punishment, because the man was the leader and the head. And so we're called to be the head. We're called to be the leaders of our home, and we're called to be responsible for what happens in our marriage and in our home.